The first 30 minutes after you open your eyes may do more to protect your memory over the next 20 years than any pill on your shelf, and almost everyone spends those minutes in a way that quietly works against them. I am Dr. Hale. In my 15 years in internal medicine, I watched patients in their 40s and 50s chase brain supplements and crossword apps while sleepwalking through the one part of the day that actually sets the chemistry of the brain. Your morning is not just how you wake up, it is the instruction sheet your brain follows for the next 16 hours. Here is the way I want you to think about it. Picture the first 30 minutes of your day as the operating system boot for your brain. When you turn on a computer, it does not jump straight to work. It runs a startup sequence, loads the right settings, and gets every part talking to every other part. Your brain does the same thing every single morning. And just like a computer, if the boot sequence is rushed or corrupted, everything that runs afterward is a little slower, a little glitchier, all day long. Do that boot badly for 20 years, and it adds up. And this belongs to you whether you are 45 or 75. The changes that eventually show up as memory trouble are being set in motion in midlife, through the exact things a good morning influences. You are not too young to start. You are not too old to benefit. So stay with me, because I am going to give you 5 morning habits that protect your memory. And habit number 3 is the one most people get completely backwards. And the last one may be the most powerful of all. Let's begin with the very first thing your brain wants, and it is not coffee. Habit 1 is to get daylight into your eyes early. When morning light hits your eyes, it presses the start button on your internal clock, the master timer that sits deep in your brain and governs your whole day. And here is the connection almost nobody makes. That morning light does not really pay off in the morning. It pays off that night. The National Institute on Aging notes that bright morning light helps set your circadian rhythm, which shifts you toward getting sleepy earlier and sleeping more deeply. And deep sleep is when your brain does its housekeeping, clearing out waste and filing away the day's memories into long-term storage. So think of morning light as winding a clock. You wind it when you wake, and it runs down at exactly the right time that night, dropping you into the deep sleep your memory depends on. 10 to 20 minutes of real outdoor light does more than the brightest lamp indoors. Step onto the porch with your coffee, walk to the end of the street, sit by the sunniest window if the weather is bad. Your eyes will bank that light and spend it on better sleep tonight. And notice what most people do instead. They wake to a blaring alarm, and before their feet touch the floor, they grab the phone and pour the world's bad news straight into a brain that is barely awake. That is a corrupted boot. A jolt of stress first thing pushes your stress hormones up and keeps them there, and chronically high stress hormones are hard on the very memory center of your brain over the years. So one of the quietest, most powerful things you can do is simply not reach for the phone in the first 10 minutes. Let your brain finish its startup before you hand it a problem. Light before news. Water before headlines. It sounds small. It is not. Habit 2 is to drink water before anything else. You just spent 7 or 8 hours without a drop, breathing out moisture the whole time, so you wake up mildly dehydrated whether you feel it or not. And your brain is exquisitely sensitive to that. Even mild dehydration has been shown to dent concentration, alertness, and short-term memory. Your brain is roughly 3/4 water. Run it a little dry, and it is like driving a car a quart low on oil. It still runs, but everything grinds a bit. Coffee, for all its pleasures, is not a substitute for that glass of water. I am not asking you to give up coffee. In moderation, it is fine, and many of us love it. I am asking you to not let it be the first thing that lands in an empty, dehydrated system. Water first. Then the coffee, ideally with a little food. And give the caffeine a cutoff in the early afternoon, because it lingers far longer than people believe and skims the deep sleep off the back of your night. the very sleep your memory needs. Now, habit 3, the one I told you people get backwards. Most people think breakfast is about energy for the morning. For your brain, breakfast is really about steadiness, and the mistake is starting the day sweet. When you open with sugary cereal, a pastry, or a coffee that is basically dessert, you fire your blood sugar straight up, and what goes up must crash. That crash is the mid-morning fog, the irritability, the reach for another snack. Your brain runs on a steady drip of fuel, and a spike and a plunge is the opposite of steady. The fix is a protein-forward breakfast. Harvard Health has reported that people who eat more protein at breakfast have steadier blood sugar and less hunger later in the day. Protein and fiber digest slowly, so instead of a spike and a plunge, you get a long, even release, like the difference between throwing gasoline on a fire and feeding it steady logs. Think eggs with vegetables, plain yogurt with berries and nuts, oats with seeds, whole grain toast with avocado and an egg. What they share is protein, fiber, and healthy fat, and very little added sugar. And this matters for the long game too, because over the years, steady blood sugar protects the tiny, delicate blood vessels that feed your brain. High blood sugar slowly wears those vessels down. Let me pause right here, because you are halfway through the 5, and if this is useful to you, do one small thing for me. Subscribe to Dr. Hale, and comment your age below. I read them, and it tells me who is actually out here protecting their brain. Are you in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or beyond? Tell me. Then stay with me, because habit 4 is the one that gets your blood moving, and habit 5 is the one people skip the most. Habit 4 is a short morning walk, not a punishing workout. A brisk 10 or 15 minutes is plenty. Here is why movement matters so much for the brain. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it drinks up around 1/5 of your blood supply, delivered through miles of tiny vessels. When you move, you push more of that fresh, oxygen-rich blood up to the brain. The American Heart Association has long pointed to regular physical activity as one of the most protective things you can do for both your heart and your brain, in large part because what is good for those blood vessels is good for the mind they feed. There is a bonus too. Exercise nudges your body to release a substance that behaves like fertilizer for brain cells, helping them stay healthy, form new connections, and survive longer. Researchers who study walking have measured this fertilizer rising with regular activity. You do not need to understand the chemistry. You just need to know that a short morning walk is not only moving your legs, it is feeding your brain and setting a tone of momentum for the whole day. Movement in the morning tends to make the rest of the day's good choices easier, almost like the walk gives you permission to take care of yourself. Let me tie a thread through the first 4 habits, because it will make the whole thing stick. Notice how much of this keeps coming back to blood flow and steady fuel. Light protects the sleep that cleans your brain. Water keeps the blood from running thick and sluggish. A steady breakfast protects the tiny vessels from the wear of high blood sugar. A walk pushes fresh blood up to the brain and keeps those vessels supple. Underneath the fancy words, a memory-protecting morning is really a morning that protects the plumbing your brain runs on. What is good for your heart is good for your head. Almost every time, those two travel together, which is why the American Heart Association talks about the same habits for both. Now, habit 5, the one people skip the most, and quite possibly the most powerful. Give your brain a real challenge and a moment of real human connection first thing. Your brain builds strength the way a muscle does, through use. Starting the day with something that genuinely makes you think, reading something with substance, working a puzzle, planning your day in detail, learning a few words of a new language, gently stretches the mind. And connecting with another human being, a real conversation, a phone call to someone you love, even a warm exchange with a neighbor, lights up more of your brain at once than almost anything else, because it demands memory, language, attention, and emotion all firing together. The National Institute on Aging has highlighted that staying mentally engaged and socially connected is linked to better brain health as we age. There is a concept behind this worth knowing. It is called cognitive reserve, a kind of spare capacity and richer wiring your brain builds through a lifetime of curiosity and connection. Reserve is what lets some people stay sharp, even when age brings a little wear. You cannot buy reserve in a bottle. You build it, morning by morning. So call your sister. Do the crossword. Read the real article, not just the headline. It is not idle time. It is training for the mind you are hoping to keep. Let me make this real with a story. I will call him Walter, a composite of many patients I have seen, so no single person is being described. Walter was 62, recently retired and worried. He told me his memory felt foggy, that names slipped away, that he felt duller than he used to. His mornings, it turned out, went like this. Wake to a blaring alarm. Grab the phone, scroll the bad news in bed. Sugary coffee, no food. Sit in the dim house until noon, no light, no walk, barely a word spoken to another soul. We did not add a single supplement. We changed his boot sequence. Water and daylight on the porch. A protein breakfast. A 10-minute walk to the corner and back. A morning phone call to his brother. 6 weeks later, he told me the fog had lifted more than he expected. Nothing magic happened. He simply stopped starting his day in a way that worked against his brain. Now, I want to be honest and clear about something, because false hope is the opposite of what I am here for. A good morning routine is not a guarantee against memory loss, and some causes of decline are beyond anyone's control. So let me tell you the signs that mean it is time to stop watching videos and see a doctor. Memory changes that interfere with daily life, not just a misplaced word. Getting lost in a familiar place. Trouble following a recipe or handling money you always managed before. Repeating the same question over and over. A sudden change, or memory loss paired with confusion, weakness, or trouble speaking, which needs urgent care right away. Normal aging is slower word recall. Losing the thread of your own life is not, and that is a conversation to have with your doctor promptly, because some causes are treatable when caught early. All right, let's put your morning together, because none of it is hard and none of it costs a thing. Here is your this week checklist. 1. Before the phone, drink a full glass of water. 2. Get 10 to 20 minutes of real daylight into your eyes, outside if you can. 3. Take a short walk, even just to the corner and back. 4. Eat a protein-forward breakfast instead of a sugar spike. Eggs, yogurt, oats, not the pastry. 5. Give your mind one real challenge and share one real conversation before noon. You do not need to do all 5 perfectly starting tomorrow. Pick one. Stack a second on it next week. The brain does not respond to one heroic morning. It responds to the same modest morning repeated hundreds of times, because that is how new connections form and reserve gets built. That is genuinely good news, because it means you do not have to be perfect. You just have to be repetitive. And repetition is something anyone can manage. And let me be honest about one more thing, because I never want to oversell. The morning is only the opening scene, not the whole play. A beautiful morning followed by a day of sitting, stress, junk food, and a wrecked night of sleep will not carry you on its own. The same principles run through the whole day and the whole of your life. But the morning is the easiest place to begin because it is the one stretch of the day that is quiet, that is yours, and that quietly sets the tone for everything that comes after it. Win the first 30 minutes, and you have tilted the odds for the 16 hours that follow. One last thing, and it is the most important sentence today. This is education, not medical advice, and I do not know your history or your health. If you are worried about your memory or anything here raises a question for you, bring it to your doctor, because they can see what I cannot. If this gave you a hopeful, doable way to protect your memory, subscribe to Dr. Hale so the next one finds you. Because next time, I am staying in the morning but moving to your plate. There is one breakfast that millions of people over 40 eat every single day believing it is healthy, and it may be spiking their blood sugar worse than a candy bar. I will name it, and I will show you the swap. Take care of yourself. Whether you are 45 or 75, the mornings you protect now are quietly building the mind you will be living with for the rest of your life, and the next morning is yours to boot up right.